It was love at first sight, Thomas Markle said after Rachel Meghan Markle, his youngest daughter, was born on 4th August 1981 at the West Park Hospital in Canoga Park, Los Angeles. The 37-year-old father proudly held the newborn baby, who he repeatedly called Flower. Doria Markle, his 24-year-old wife, was sleeping, comatose after her anesthetic after the cesarean birth. Once Doria awoke to discover she had a daughter, she pronounced her name should be Rachel. Thomas preferred Meghan. As a compromise, she was called Rachel Meghan. Within days, Rachel was forgotten. In Celtic Irish, Meghan means brave warrior. In Welsh, it means pearl. During Meghan's first weeks, her father redecorated the family bathroom in their comfortable 3-story house in Woodward Hills with angels and fairies. The look on his face was priceless, recalled Tom Jr., his son from a previous marriage. Watching Thomas hold Meghan, Tom Jr. could see his father was smitten. My dad was more in love with her than anyone else in the world, and that included Doria. She became his whole life, his little princess. While Thomas endlessly photographed his daughter, he agreed with Doria that baby Meghan should get everything she wanted. Even as a baby, any sign of her displeasure should be instantly placated by gifts. Worshipped, their daughter would be endlessly reassured that she was special. Her parents' unconditional love inevitably shaped Meghan's character and personality. Thomas and Doria had met in 1977 at the ABC Film Studios in Los Angeles. 33 years old, Thomas had just been nominated for an Emmy as the lighting director of the daytime TV soap General Hospital. Unsurprisingly, he spotted Doria, a slim, beautiful, black 21-year-old trainee makeup artist with a nose stud. After a few weeks, Doria moved into Thomas's untidy family home. "I'm not the neatest of men," Thomas admitted. Among papers, memorabilia, and furniture, he was bringing up 2 adolescent children from a previous marriage, Tom Jr. and Samantha. Doria found the setup challenging. Nevertheless, the atmosphere was good. Tom Jr. recalled how the Markles celebrated Thanksgiving with Doria's grandfather, mother, and half-brother. "It was really warm and inclusive," Tom Jr. recalled. "The kind of family I had always wanted." Their decision to marry on 23 December 1979 was unusual. At the time, fewer than one white American man in 1,000 was married to a black woman. "When I married Doria," recalled Thomas, "people asked, 'What color will your baby be?' I said, 'I don't know, and I don't care.'" On reflection, Thomas became aware that in mixed-race marriages, their child's color becomes an issue of self-identity for the parents, and the issue is discussed before the birth. Thomas promised Doria kindness and stability, especially after she did not qualify as a makeup artist. All was set for Thomas to start a new life. "I like to think," Meghan wrote in 1990, aged 8, "he was drawn to her sweet eyes and her afro, plus their shared love of antiques." From the outset, however, the prospects of a long, happy union were uncertain. 12 years younger than Thomas, Doria lived in her own world. Immersed in the teaching of a Hindu yoga guru and the mystical religions, she insisted on being married by a Buddha priest, Brother Bhaktananda, in the Self-Realization Fellowship Temple, a replica Indian temple on Sunset Boulevard. Thomas happily went along with his wife's choice. "I loved Doria," Thomas said. "I didn't think how long it would last. I gave it a go because I wanted a child. This was the first child I could afford. I didn't have enough money for the other two. To make life easier, Thomas rented a big house in a quiet cul-de-sac in Woodward Hills, a white middle-class residential area lined with eucalyptus trees near the Bell Canyon parkland. Photographs taken soon after Megan's birth recorded a happy family. Sitting at a table of food cooked by Doria, Thomas held Megan surrounded by Tom Jr. and Samantha. Their happiness was short-lived. Once Thomas resumed working 18-hour shifts, cracks in his relationship with Doria appeared. Megan's parents were clearly incompatible. Before arriving at the ABC studios, Doria had helped her father sell bric-a-brac, and then she moved around California trying to be a travel agent, an importer, and finally a clothing designer before finding a permanent job. Thomas says she was employed by a boyfriend to prune marijuana plants in Humboldt County. After stripping the leaves and stems, her boyfriend supplied customers across Los Angeles. As Thomas ruefully recalled, everyone in Hollywood at that time, including himself, was smoking and taking drugs, not just at home, but also in restaurants and even at the Academy Awards. In Thomas' absence at work, Tom Jr. smoked cannabis with his friends in the house. Doria also regularly smoked cannabis with women friends and sometimes Jeffrey, a friend from her high school days. Doria sympathized with Tom Jr.'s particular problem. As part of California's integration policy, he was bused, without choice, 1 hour across Los Angeles to an all-black school. Regularly, the ginger-haired boy was beaten up by other pupils. For 1 year, Doria urged the local education authority to accept that he experienced sufficient diversity at home. Eventually, his anguish was ended, but the damage to his education was beyond repair. There was no similar rapport between Doria and Samantha. Doria had begun to sell jewelry. Her new company, 3 Cherubs, irked Samantha. The 3 represented Doria, Thomas, and Megan. "Why isn't it the 5 Cherubs?" Samantha asked. Increasingly jealous of Megan and already frustrated about the difficulties of becoming an actress, Samantha, now 13, told Thomas that Doria's housekeeping was unsatisfactory. Doria was, according to Samantha, ordering her stepdaughter to clean the house. Samantha's resentment grew as Doria increasingly partied in the family home with girlfriends or drove back to Humboldt County to smoke marijuana. "Doria changed after we married," admitted Thomas Markle. "I didn't realize she would still smoke so much weed." Even when Samantha returned home in the afternoon with school friends, she found Doria sitting in a dressing room on the front lawn, smoking a joint. Doria, Thomas, and Samantha Markle agreed was neither gentle nor loving. Thomas also discovered that Doria found caring for Megan alone in the house difficult, and there was more. Samantha recalls seeing photographs of Doria with women taken by Thomas on the walls of their home. Thomas was also aware that Doria was sleeping with other men. "You're being used by Doria," Samantha told her father. The angry teenager moved out of the house. At first, Thomas refused to intervene. Then, he too became angered by Doria's lifestyle. "We just were on different paths," he recalled without rancor. "I was also married to my work," he admitted. In Thomas's version, Doria's fondness for marijuana, her sex life, and her antagonism towards Samantha, who had just been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, ended the marriage. The amicable settlement, negotiated by one lawyer, split Thomas's limited savings. The couple also agreed that in exchange for no alimony, Thomas would always support Megan. The absence of any rancor was inspired by Thomas's delight to have a young daughter. Until then, his domestic life had been troubled. Born in 1944 in Newport, Pennsylvania, his parents, Gordon and Doris, could trace their American roots back to the Great Migration from England in 1632. One branch of the Markle family went back to the reign of King Edward III, who died in 1377. Other forefathers arrived in the 18th century from Germany and Holland to work as farmers, miners, and craftsmen. Before the Second World War, Thomas's father, Gordon, had owned a petrol station and then worked in a shoe factory. After military service in Hawaii during the war, he became a printer at an Air Force base in Harrisburg. At the end of the daily 52-mile round-trip commute to work from Newport, he returned home miserable. After dinner with his 3 sons, Thomas was the third child after Mick and Fred, Gordon went to his room to read pornographic magazines. Despite her sullen husband, Doris Markle encouraged her 3 sons to enjoy the best of New England's outdoor life, fishing in the river and picking food in the fields and woods. She was also determined that her sons would have a good education. Mick joined the Foreign Service and Fred the church as a free priest. Thomas, however, was a risk-taker. Tall, thin, and known as a cool cat, he chased local girls. Every Sunday, as the last in the line of altar boys at the Episcopalian church, he waited for the priest to pour the last drops of wine into his mouth. Regularly, he staggered out of the building. He was unsuited for college after leaving school. Starting as a stagehand in a local theater, Thomas chose lighting as his specialty. Moving to Chicago, he worked as a junior technician in a TV station and in a theater. In the midst of his hectic teenage social life, he met unemployed Rosalind Lovelace at a party. Within days, Rosalind was pregnant and Thomas did the right thing. They married in 1964. Both were 19 years old. Born the same year, their baby daughter, Yvonne, would later rename herself as Samantha, was the elder sister of Tom Jr., born in 1966. Samantha would later describe her mother as promiscuous. Thomas Markle worked and played hard. At the end of a long day on the set, he preferred to party around the clock rather than return home. Family time was limited to taking his children to a baseball match at the weekends or to the TV studio where he worked. They were always arguing, Samantha recalled, about her parents' fractured marriage. Thomas moved out, divorced, and headed for Hollywood. After scraping a living in restaurant kitchens, he finally made a breakthrough. Living in Santa Monica and earning a good income from lighting at ABC, Thomas heard that his 2 children were struggling. Rosalind was partying with a series of men and her hippie friends in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Their mother, the children complained, was not spending the money he sent for them. To escape their mother, Samantha moved to live with Thomas in Santa Monica and was followed by Tom Jr. Their safe haven was unstable. Sometimes working 18 hours a day, Thomas Markle struggled to give his children a better home. Neither child complained, although Tom Jr. spent most of his day smoking cannabis, while Samantha, occasionally dressed as a goth, disappeared to nightclubs before arriving in the morning at the local high school. Thomas did his best. Inspired by her regular visits with her father to the Sunset Gower Studios, Samantha wanted to become a Hollywood actor. Thomas arranged a walk-on part in a TV drama, but Samantha's ambitions remained unfulfilled. In 1977, Thomas's turbulent background was mirrored by Doria's unstable family. Divorced, remarried, and then repeatedly abandoned by their parents, Doria's mother and grandmothers had brought up their children single-handed. Both their family backgrounds were unexceptional. Doria's great-great-great-grandfather was an enslaved person, a William Ragland in Jonesboro, Georgia. On emancipation from 6 generations of slavery, Megan would later claim, he named himself Wisdom. The evidence, however, suggests that he remained Ragland. After emancipation, the Raglands worked as hired hands around the original farmstead, and only at the beginning of the 20th century did their children head for nearby towns to find work as a hall porter, a waiter, and a presser in a cleaning shop. In 1954, Alvin Ragland, who would become Doria's father, met Jeanette Johnson in Cleveland. Jeanette Johnson had been abandoned by her husband with 2 children. To survive, she worked as a hotel lift operator. In 1956, Alvin and Jeanette married, and Doria was born. Soon afterwards, the family, including Jeanette's 7-year-old son, Joseph Johnson, packed their belongings and drove to Los Angeles. Doria's half-brother Joseph would recall their nighttime arrival in a small town in Texas. Cold and hungry, they were told there were no rooms for black people. The highway is that way. Get going. You're not welcome here. Once settled in Los Angeles, Joseph and Doria went to the predominantly white Jewish Fairfax High School. Alvin set up a succession of antique shops, including 'Twas New, and became known for a fast life, driving flash cars and chasing women. Doria's dissatisfaction of her life with Thomas Markle coincided with Alvin, her father, abandoning Jeanette for a teacher called Ava Burrows. They later married. Life's hard, Doria said, agreeing with Jeanette, her mother. In 1983, after their separation, Doria took her 2-year-old daughter to live with her mother. At the same time, Thomas moved into a large converted barn on Vista Del Mar Avenue, a stylish neighborhood close to Hollywood Boulevard. He also rented a small flat opposite the ABC studios. Later accounts that Thomas was plagued by money troubles from the time Megan was a small child, and this had contributed to the breakup with Doria, were untrue. Shortly after her parents' separation, Megan was enrolled by Thomas in the Little Red Schoolhouse, a favorite crochet among Hollywood's film set. Located near the ABC studios and Doria's new home, Megan's parents adopted a fixed routine. On the days when Thomas was working an 18-hour shift, Doria and Jeanette cared for Megan. On the alternate days when Thomas was in meetings to plan future filming, he collected Megan from school. He looked after her every weekend. Moving between her parents and their different ways of life, Megan radiated happiness. With light olive-freckled skin and curly hair, she was not identified by anyone as belonging to any particular race or culture. Racism did not appear to be a problem, especially at school. Although there were few black people in the Hollywood Hills, Thomas Markle insists that race was never mentioned in his conversations with Megan. Doria mentioned one incident when someone in Woodward Hills had mistakenly assumed she was Megan's nanny. "I didn't see any racism in that area," insisted Thomas Markle. Doria never complained that it was difficult as a black person to live there. Writing for the first time about her background in 2015, Megan did not suggest that her mixed-race parentage, or biracial as she would write, complicated her life. She praised her father for making her feel accepted. "I had been fawning over a box set of Barbie dolls," she later wrote. It was called the Hart family and included a mom doll, a dad doll, and 2 children. This perfect nuclear family was only sold in sets of white dolls or black dolls. On Christmas morning, swathed in glitter-flecked wrapping paper, there I found my heart family. A black mom doll, a white dad doll, and a child in each color. My dad had taken the sets apart and customized my family. Thomas's recollection is different. I gave her the dolls at her 4th birthday party in a park with her school friends. Doria and her mother were also there, he continued. One mother said, I've never seen a set like that in the store. Until Megan publicized the gift 30 years later to illustrate her problems with race, Thomas Markle could not recall Megan ever mentioning the issue. In 1986, Doria found caring for her 5-year-old daughter too difficult. Increasingly, Megan either went after school to the home of Nikki Pretty, Megan's first and best school friend, or was collected by Thomas and sat in the TV studio while he worked. Encouraged by Nikki Pretty's parents, the deep relationship between the two girls gave Nikki a unique insight into her friend. She always wanted to be famous. She just loved to be the center of attention. Growing up on film sets, noticed Pretty made Megan a bit of a star. We used to imagine her receiving an Oscar. She used to practice announcing herself. I knew she was going into show business. Real easy. Samantha's absence from home confirmed Megan's impression that she was an only child. Nikki Pretty witnessed the consequence. She was tough, too. If you rubbed her up the wrong way, she'd make it known with the silent treatment. There was a time when we were about 7, and I collected a bunch of insects. She didn't want to play with them. We spent 2 hours sitting at opposite ends of the garden with our backs to each other in silence. I'd always be the first to apologize. I just wanted to be besties again. She was stubborn. She digs her heels in the ground.